I can't hear you. Hi. Hi, everyone. This is Sean Wander here again with Control Writer Software, along with my partner, Mitchell German, who is actually double muted. I'm trying to get him through this technical issue so he can unlock his microphone so we can actually hear him. So bear with us just 1 second while we get through this minor technical issue. There you go. You there, Mitch? Now I can say something.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Okay. Still there?
Yeah, just get started.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's important that we hear you, so now you're good. Okay. Again, sorry for the confusion.
Can you hear me
now? But yes, we are good. We can hear you.
All right.
So welcome again for the second time, and apologize for the issues up front. And today we're going to be covering in quite a bit of detail the transaction tab within offering.
So I was trying to mess around with the microphone.
Mitch, can you hear me? Because you're talking over me at the moment. Mitch? Sorry, guys. Bear with me just 1 sec.
Yes, I can. No, I was. Hold on a second.
I would go back to
I
would go back to the normal way of doing it.
We'd have to just drop this other computer off. Just give me 1 second, and we'll get rid of the other computer.
In the meantime, I'm going to just keep going so we don't keep everybody waiting.
Yeah, we're going to boot that out.
Maybe we can even edit this one way or the other. But nevertheless, so what we're going to be covering today is going to be the transaction tab. And one thing I actually do want to emphasize, Mitch, make sure it's locked on me. One thing I do actually want to emphasize is that when we're going through this various training in these tabs, you know, obviously every one of these concepts and the information that is in each of these things can be covered. I mean, we could spend a day going over each one of these training aspects. But what we are doing here in this process is going over each of these as it relates specifically to using the software. And I really want to make that important point because we can spend a lot of time going over them, and frankly, we will. There will be additional training that's going to be part of this that you will see in your members area, where we are going to be talking specifically about case studies and more detailed breakdowns of each one of the aspects that you use in building out these effective campaigns. But as we go through this initial round of sessions, walking through the tabs, it's really designed to define these elements for you so you have a sense of what each one of them are, and more importantly, how they directly relate to how you're going about using the software in the process. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into today's training for the transaction tab. So what we're going to do is, as you notice, is Mitch is the software broadcasting now?
Yeah, software broadcast now.
Okay, cool. And forgive me, everyone, for having to ask these questions, but with the technical challenge, I just want to make sure everyone is seeing what they need to see. So as we look at the transaction tab, you notice that we actually have 5 different tabs total, but really 3 different kinds of tabs. You've got your quick sale, you've got your primary product sale, and then you have your upsells 1, 2, and 3. And tabs 1, 2, and 3 are actually identical, similar to what we referred to in the lead gen tab, where you actually have multiple opportunities to do different lead gen tests within the same campaign. So starting first with quick sale, you know, this is of course going to be the initial sale. So at this point, you've probably taken your prospects through a series of lead gathering opportunities, whether it's an online ad, whether it's an offline ad, any number of ways to get them to do an action which at this point probably did not involve money. It may have involved registering for a webinar or to watch a certain video, see some information, and in all likelihood what you were going for at this point was their name and email address, either that or a call into your office, depending on what product or service you are selling. At this point, especially in the online process, we're now looking to do what we call a quick sale, which is to make sure that somebody is interested enough in what you have to offer and that you're building enough value that they're willing to give you a small amount of money, relatively speaking. And by small amount, we mean really anything from, from $5 all the way up to really $20. Anything 20 and under, we would categorize as a quick sale. And so now as we look at the elements, we'll review briefly what some of the ones that we went over last time are, but of course you're starting with your frame. And so once again, the frame is the specific and unique context that you want your prospects to see when you are communicating your message. You are always controlling your frame. And again, for more detailed information and review of frame, check out the training that we did for lead gen where we broke down frame in quite a bit of detail. Similarly with the headline and hook. The headline hook is one element that helps to make up your overall frame, and the headline hook is obviously the very first thing you see, the item and element that is gathering you into the fray to gain your interest. Depending on your market, depending on who you're going after and what message you're trying to get across, your headline and hook is going to be a critical element in really getting them into the next step. The goal of the headline is always to get them to look at what's next, to look at what's below the sales page, or in some cases, watch the video. Again, visual elements, these are notes on any and all visual elements that you're going to use as part of your process in making this quick sale, whether it's images, whether it's videos, even to the extent fonts, graphics, and other elements that you want to make as part of it, those all go under the element of visual element review.
And it's important to point out here that, unfortunately, you can't see my video. We were trying to do an experiment where I'd have two computers, one that could display my screen and one that I could be on video. So when I speak, I don't have to go back and forth with the video, but we've given up on that at this point for this broadcast. And the visual element is very important to point out with all three of these things, specifically starting with the frame, headline, hook, and it goes throughout the entire offer you make, is that the congruency is very important. And it all begins with the frame because everything should be about the frame. Like an incongruent visual element really is not the right way to go with marketing, and you'll see that sometimes where they'll have a, oftentimes a half-nude woman that is, about something completely unrelated to anything to do with the beach or anything that would be, or bathing suits or anything like that. Everybody knows what I'm talking about in that context. And the idea here is congruency. Frame, headline, hook, visual element, it's all should be completely congruent. The frame sets that context, and that's the most important thing. The context, the headline hook, is about that context. The visual element's also about that context, and of course, it all relates to the problem and or circumstance. I'll turn it back to you, Sean.
Right. So in terms of the problem circumstances, this is once again just such a huge reminder of how much these two parts of the software are integrated. So if we go for a moment back in position control to the core elements tab, once again, this is where at this point you, in all likelihood, would have done some work on the circumstance tab to really start thinking about not only who your consumer is, but specifically the circumstances that they find themselves in on a regular basis. As you can see from this example, in this case, we had used the example from our own software. These are people who may have bought many other training courses. They had struggled to get results, and or they're unable to manage or orchestrate the necessary marketing components for a successful campaign. So the problem and circumstances are very clearly defined here in our core element work. So now when we go back to transaction and we're looking to draw that problem circumstance, actually back to quick sale, Mitch, when we're actually looking to draw that problem circumstance, this is material that is taken directly from your core elements. And so it's always good to remember that the work that you're doing in your strategic thinking and your initial brainstorming and branding work in the position control area is going to immediately come into play as you start to work through executing the actual funnel itself. Now the next thing we come to is something called a story lead. Now, story lead is very important because remember, what we're doing here is we are in a quick sale. And as a general rule, the idea is that when you are communicating the message and building the value equation from start to finish to ultimately get somebody to take action and invest in your product or service, the idea is that you don't ever want to say any more or any less than you actually need to make this happen. And so if you know that one paragraph or a 30-second video is going to be the most effective way, for example, to sell a $5 PDF for book report, then that's what you can do. It's not necessary to make a 20-minute sales page, or for that matter, do a 90-minute webinar and training to sell a $5 product. It's not to say that you can't do it, but in all likelihood, it's not the most effective way to do it, and frankly, people may be more likely to miss something great that, had the messaging been a little bit tighter and more to the point, would have had a very good chance to convert in that offer. And the same is true.
This goes back to what we discussed within the last few lessons, was the idea of building value, that it's a value proposition. So obviously, if you're selling something between $5 and $20, the value proposition is, the bar is much lower to reach to say, yeah, okay, it's worth it. You're selling something that's $200 or $500, $1,000, the bar becomes much higher, and therefore there's a much bigger value proposition that needs to be built in order to successfully make that sale.
Exactly. And so in that same vein, when we're talking about the story and building your entire marketing story, of which we've gone over, for more information on that, make sure you check out the training on the story tab that we did earlier that's available in your members area. But the story lead is really just the most important component, a short excerpt from your story that you use to communicate the essence of the quick sale. So it may just be really just literally a 1-minute summary or a capsule of the key points of your story. Ideally, the initial setting, the initial event very quickly, and ultimately the discovery and the key message that you want to communicate and what you're trying to do. So rather than using the long form of that story, when it comes to the quick sale, more often than not, the story lead will be sufficient. Mitch, you want to talk specifically just another angle on what, or maybe even give an example of a story lead versus the more comprehensive story?
Well, I think for me, the idea of a story lead is you're introducing the story, but you're not going to tell the whole entire story. Let me click off of you. You get to see software when I speak for today. Actually, I could undo the software here.
Yeah.
Do that. If I do that. Oh, hold on. Now you're probably seeing nothing. Are
you talking right now, Mitch? Because we can't hear you.
Do you see my screen backwards?
I see your screen normal.
Okay, I see my screen backwards.
Wow.
Inside webinar Jim. Let me see if I see you. Are you reversed? Hold your cup of juice up for me, so that I can see the red letters.
Product once again. Product.
Yeah. It looks normal to me. Okay, so oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Get my camera on. It should be working now. Nope, not working. Oh well. Okay, we tried. I'm not gonna not really crazy with this. There I am. Now let's try that. That's weird. So now I see me, but am I broadcasting to you? Can you see me now?
I mean, I see you.
There we go. It's all fixed. It fixed itself. All right. Look, we normally do this at 12:30. We decided to do it at 11 o'clock, and of course, this is what happens. So story lead. Let's get back to what I was going to say. So to me, story lead is about focusing in on a component of the story that usually is just enough of a taste to set the frame in order to convey, who you are, your authority, your product's authority, whatever it is. In other words, even if you pick up the bottle, because we talk about so much about info marketing, internet marketing, but so much of what we're doing is built into packaging. So hold your water bottle up a second there, Sean.
Yep.
Let's go on you on the water bottle. I guarantee if we look at this carefully, and we're going to see a lot of what we're talking about is being done in the branding marketing here. In other words, there's the SIFO is really the story lead on some level, and then it's going to have. And if you look through this, there's all the core elements are here. All the obviously it's seltzer, so there's not much we can really dig into. But all the marketing and packaging, it's doing a lot of everything that's built into the software. It's conveying a lot of the same information. It's got to do it. It's got to do it right there, and that's all boxing, packaging. Go to the store. That's what they're doing. Including
the things that you can't see that are part of branding. And this is somewhat off topic, but since we brought it up, just all the different elements. Obviously, they're deciding to call out since 1949. Well, since 1949, obviously they want you to know this is a company that didn't just, it's not a, a vitamin water or one of these.
And by the way, that would be story lead on some level, right? Because they're saying who they are, they're telling their story.
Right. And again, some of the unique elements, the significant features or the ultimate features, reverse osmosis purified. That's something that they're putting right around the top band. They want you to know that this is specially treated water. Reverse osmosis in the bottling industry is the top quality of water. And so all of that, obviously the other unique features and the flavor and the messaging. I mean, this may or may not be the best example.
No, of course. Well, it was an example because you were holding it. But the truth be told, that we could probably go through that and start talking about, like, in terms of the quick sale things that they're not doing. Like they talk about reverse osmosis, but you just said something even more meaningful. You said that's the highest quality water, and maybe they should come up with a way to state that, because reverse osmosis, the average person does not know what reverse osmosis is. That's a technical term. And what they should do is they should drill down to what does that mean for the customer. I'm sure everybody uses reverse osmosis. I'm sure it's the most common way of filtering.
Most bottled water production does that. And what it is it's a classic example of actually it's this water industry's or this company's take on the very famous Schlitz, where they used only special hops and a particular process of making beer, when in reality that's what, I forget what they called it, cold frosting or cold something at the time, but that's what all of them do. But Schlitz was the first one to call that out in a famous campaign, and so they were the ones who were recognized with that very successful campaign at the time.
So story lead.
Go ahead.
So anyway, story lead is the introduction of your story. It's a hard concept to put your finger on. It's an introduction of framing of your story. But not necessarily telling the whole story, because we're not at the point of transaction. We're going to save the whole story for later when we're trying to do a bigger sale. Because right now the bar of value is lower in the quick sale. That was what I was saying before. The bar to get to where the sale value is greater and we need to do more selling is much different when we get to the actual product. Above $50 or $60 or $100 for a sale, there's a whole different level of bar of value that has to be passed.
Right. So to give you a perfect example, there are a lot of very well-known people in the industry, marketers or in the professional development industry. People like Brendan Burchard, who some of you may be familiar with. He is very good at the story lead. And so what you might hear him doing on a special report he's offering, or something that is not a lot of money, certainly sub 20, and even to some extent that his quick sale, or as Frank Kern calls it, a tripwire, for something that's a valuable report that he's trying to use, he often uses a very similar story lead. He just says, "Hi, this is Brendan Burchard, best-selling author of The Millionaire Messenger, and charged." And and I remember back when I was doing this and I had this accident, and it was at that time that I came to the realization that I had to ask myself, did I live, did I love, did I matter? And he tells his live, love, matter story. And that's essentially the capsule of what he tells on stage in a much longer form. But the point is, he uses that story lead very effectively pretty much for any intro that he does where he's offering a free offer or a quick sale product or service. Obviously for his normal product launch formula process, he will go into much more depth in each one of the videos, telling the more detailed story. So that's the story lead. Now, establishing credibility and authority. This obviously is critically important, and this is now a situation where, unlike the lead gen tab where we didn't go into as much detail in this area, now it's really, you're now starting to ask somebody for a financial investment. And so before anybody's willing to give you anything, let alone a name and email, certainly before they're willing to give you a credit card or invest in you in any way, they want to know who they're dealing with. And this is where your work in the influence tab comes into play. All the work that you did back actually we can go to the influence tab real quick. Talking about where your authority comes from. Do you have certifications? Have you been in the business for more than a decade or a number of years? Have you generated specific financial results for your clients? How many followers do you have? What type of engagement have you had on this subject matter for a long time? Have you been published? All of these kinds of things you're going to be thinking through as you're working through your influence process, so that when it comes to the transaction, this is now where you're pulling all of that information and just putting that right into your credibility and authority.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like you include this in some kind of script. It could just literally be an on-page, some testimonials, or stating your seal of your degree, whatever it is. That may be enough. It doesn't necessarily have to be a part of a script. It's just how are you going to effectively communicate that in some way when people start to be interested and they want to know, well, who the heck is this guy?
Yes, and that's a really good point, Mitch. In terms of your note-taking process here, this is just where you want to communicate exactly how you're going to do this. Remember, the idea of the software here is whether you're using this to actually write the script, which you can certainly do, or whether you're simply brainstorming and noting the process itself so you know exactly how you're going to do it in this campaign. All of those things are there. So if you were going to do, for example, what Mitch said, and just put, you'd make a note here. This is where we're going to have a 30-second testimonial interview on a recent client who used this report to generate more than 6 figures in less than 90 days, kind of a thing. So whatever the case may be, this is where you're looking at this element combined with what you've thought through in your influence tab and bringing that into this specific quick sale transaction. And ultimately, what all of that before leads to is the point where you're now stating your proposition, okay? Because at some point you've led all up to it, and you have to say, and this is why we want to present to you your X, whatever it is, your $5 to $19 offer that you're making. This is really the short form offer. You're proposing that if you do this, you're going to get this, and up until this point, the value that you are communicating you will get from using this is going to be there. And actually, the state your proposition directly relates to what's right next to it, which is the anticipated outcome. Hand in hand with stating the proposition, you're going to communicate what people should expect to receive. You're going to paint for them what they can expect to experience specifically as a result of using this product or service. And the gap when that does not occur is when you don't have conversions, or when you have cart abandonment, or when people leave it. So you can always know that if you've had engagement through your ads or through your message up until this point, but then the drop-off is somewhere between stating the proposition, making the offer, and communicating the anticipated outcome. If somebody doesn't clearly see it beyond a shadow of a doubt, and mind you, this is usually more than 80 to 90% of people that are going to see this, that's where that gap is. And it can be for any number of things. Sometimes that individual just isn't ready for your product or service. Maybe they need more exposures. Maybe they physically don't have the money. In the case of a quick sale, that's highly unlikely. But it may just be that you have not made, in most cases, the value for that moment for them to take that chance. Whether or not there's a full money-back guarantee just has not been clearly demonstrated enough to the point where they're willing to do it without even thinking further.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of things we could talk about here. First of all, you're never going to convert. It would be extraordinarily rare, even in a quick sale, low product item, to ever convert more than 20%. So, like a 20% conversion rate in almost any offering is going to be considered pretty strong, even at a low price point. Obviously, every single product has to be considered on its own, but just as rough average as the 80-20 rule applies everywhere. And it applies here. You're going to get 20% of people are going to take your lead gen, 20% of those people will take your quick sale, 20% of those people should take your product. That's a different conversation. But so you got your stated proposition, as Sean explained, is just review. My own thinking about it is sort of like where you're going to finally state what this is all about, what is available to them, the anticipated outcome, what they should expect from it, and finally the conversion point. Now you say, hey, listen, give me some money, and I've made an offer, I've built value. Is this now worth $5, $10, $15, $20 for your prospects? And ideally you should, at an offer like this, the people who see the offer, ideally, 10 to 20%, depending on exactly what the offer is, should hopefully convert and consider your quick sale element worth at least whatever the price of that is.
Right, and when you find that you're not getting those kinds of results, that's where you can examine the process and see where it's breaking down. And this is where having certain outside tools and elements in the process are really helpful. And I believe, I don't remember if it was the last session, Mitch, or one before it, but for example, if you're using videos in your marketing, to use not just any service or YouTube, but to actually use something like a Wistia that actually gives much more detailed video stats. Because it can tell you that, if let's say you've got a 3-minute script or a 3-minute sales letter, if you see that people are bouncing off in the first 30 seconds, it means that your opening is actually not that effective. It's just the volume. Bye, buddy. See you later.
In fact, we just
my little guys are off to the pool. Mitch and I are here working. They're going to the pool.
So in fact, we just did one of the lead capture videos we've been using. We had Sean add a bumper like introduction, and the stats nearly doubled of the people who stick around for the first 4 minutes or so through that video.
Perfect example.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we have the stats side by side, and we've done a couple different ways of introducing it. And what's interesting is when we did that bumper, though, we noticed far more men started opting in than women. So it just shows, there's a lot of stats that, you got to be looking at, but that's beyond the scope of this specific lesson, which we want to really emphasize the software right now.
Absolutely, and so the key thing is just to understand that every step of the way you're able to look at the data and look at the metrics, and this is the reason why we test, because we go out with our initial best effort based on everything we think is going to work, but as we start to review that, we have to evaluate where there may be a breakdown in the process, because even though we know we'll never get 100%. The goal is always to get as close to that as possible, even if we wind up in the lower 50% as a result. And so ultimately, this all brings us to arguably the most important conversion point that we have in the entire process, which is really the very first conversion point that is a financial transaction. So in our quick sale, you see that we've got, can we go back to quick sale, Mitch? In the quick sale, you see that we've got conversion point, first sale. And just simply put, this is the first precise moment that you've heard us refer to in so many different trainings and different introductory webinars. That precise moment when the prospects can become paying customers. And that's why everything up to this point, it is so critical that you get that as right as you can and really do all that thinking and do the work and monitor that, because this first conversion point is the difference, the chasm between the people that will even go as far as to give you a name and email or even like your page or just follow you and be interested, versus the people that are willing to take out a credit card or go to their PayPal account and give even as little as $5 to your cause is a huge gap. It's such an unbelievable number. It's kind of like, there are the people that are hoping to make their first dollar online, and there are the people that have made their first dollar online, and you can't imagine the amount of people who are still yet to be profitable on the internet versus those that actually have. It's a huge gap. So that's why we emphasize this quick sale process so much, because really starting to tell your story, build your case, and put all of these things together to get to that first conversion point is going to make the difference, because what follows afterwards just becomes the next logical progression of somebody who's ultimately very interested in getting more of what you have to offer them.
So let's move on to the primary product sale.
So primary product sale is next. So at this point, they've now given you, they've now invested in you. Now, as far as strategy goes, in some cases it may just be through your email sequence or through a different selling mechanism that you're ultimately going to offer your primary product sale. Sometimes it happens immediately as the upsell to the quick sale, depending again on your product or service. Sometimes
and very often there is no quick sale. Sometimes you go from the lead capture directly to the primary product sale. Don't assume that you have to have a quick sale in your process. You have to assess your own process.
Right. It's although we again many training out there from experts in the industry highly suggest not going directly from, let's say, a cold traffic ad to a $9.97 or much higher cost product for people that really don't know you. The chances, no matter how good you are, of getting somebody to do that without a really good training mechanism, and again, whether it's literally a quick sale or whether at a minimum it's getting them to register for a webinar or event that's going to really explain that product or service package better. It makes a lot more sense, but at the end of the day, you just have to try it, because every niche, every industry is a little bit different, and different things work. But eventually you're going to get to the point where you're now designing your primary product sale. And by primary product sale, this would essentially be your products ranging from $47 all the way up through whatever your high cost item is. And so when we go back to primary product sale, now we see a lot of our old friends that we made when we first made contact, and a few more. So again, you've got the frame, of course, like always. You've got your headline hook. You've got your visual elements. You've got problem and circumstance. And in this case, what you are now doing here, even before you are making the offer and everything else, is you are talking about the ultimate improvement as it directly relates to that problem and circumstance. Because when you're pointing out the problem, obviously you're wanting to do what's called turning up the pain. The whole point of stating the problem so clearly and talking about those circumstances that people find themselves in is that you want to come back immediately and be able to say, look, okay, but once you've solved this issue, then here's what it's going to be like. This is what you can expect. This is the improvement that we want to make as a result of addressing this particular issue. Anything to add, Mitch?
No, I think it was very clear.
So, and then of course we ultimately move now to the story and credibility. And the reason we show it as story and credibility here is because the credibility, especially in the first component of your story, is what comes out very quickly. So when you're seeing something, for example, in an on-stage presentation, what you'll often see is as somebody transitions into their story, they'll sort of talk about how how their initial opening is they're trying to gain their authority on stage by talking about some of their accomplishments. Many will use what's called an accomplishment slide. And it's essentially the best of your resume. If you're appeared on many television networks, or if you had clients that are in the Forbes 400, or whatever the case may be, this is what they call your brag slide. As humbly as you want to do it, you have to find a way to demonstrate your credibility. And then what ultimately happens after that is as you built yourself up to that pedestal, you then immediately are going to begin the process of taking yourself down by saying, but it wasn't always like this. You see, it used to be when I was in such and such a situation, this is what my life looked like. And now you'll start to get into the, to the actual, the characters and the setting and the landscape of your story, and really start to move through in much more detail and walk through. So if we go to the story tab, so we don't expect everyone to operate from memory, this is where you will now comprehensively cover in the telling of your story, whether it's, again, in a sales letter, or whether it's in the video, or whether it's both. You'll walk through all of these foundational elements, from the character, the setting, the expectation, and then of course in the end you have the complication, the discovery, and the key message. And we're not going to review all.
And the complication is what Sean was talking about. It doesn't necessarily have to be a personal crash. It's a crash in some way to what was expected. The anticipated outcome of your story had some kind of complication or crash. And Sean was referring more specifically to a crash, the type that we use in our software presentation control. But certainly doesn't have to be a crash like that. But it's the point of shifting within your story where it leads you now to your discovery. And that's specifically where in a way, your credibility comes from. And that's why we let me slide this over here. That's why we call it credibility, because by telling the story is when you explain how you got to this point of discovery or this point of knowledge, there's enormous credibility in that. It's innate now, because it's naturally there. I see clearly why, and you've also showed how you experienced it, and now because you're doing it in a story form, your prospective customers can now envision how they would have gotten to the same point, and now you've got intrinsic value as opposed to sort of you just saying what the value is. There's intrinsic value connected to your product or service by way of the story.
Right. And ultimately, once again, just in terms of the mechanics of the software, this is ultimately the same story points that you're going to be extracting from that story tab, which is the reason I wanted to really show it. And just as a reminder, it's all comprehensive. All these sides relate to each other. They're all interconnected. And when you see them appearing in the funnel execution side of this whole process, you're really just drawing from the thinking and the work that you've already done. And so once you actually get through to the story, the very next step in the process is to provide the solution. Because what's so powerful in doing this is that you just spent your time essentially building up this huge problem and circumstance, talked about your relationship with that product and circumstance and how it worked, but then you're clearly demonstrating in that you ultimately have the solution, that it was your discovery of what could actually fix that issue and that you effectively did that, that is so powerful. And so, again, before you're actually...
Right, and then you created a product. You've created, well, because of that discovery, that's how I came to have the software, let's say, you know.
Whatever the case may be. And
that's right.
And the key thing here is when you're providing the solution, this is not, I repeat, this is not where you are spelling out the components of your offer. This is not the, so here's what you get. You are simply stating that there is something that exists for that product or service. So again, to use sort of Mitch's example, you know, you just finished telling your story, and the tail end of that, you said it was because of this that we ultimately created the offer and conversion control platform. This is really such a powerful platform for going through every single step and making and leaving literally no stone unturned in the offer and conversion process that you're going for with your prospects. So you're just stating what the solution is so that people know, yes, there is a solution that's available to it. And then you're moving right into your demonstration, which comes next.
And demonstration is sort of like the proof. This is where you prove all your claims. You've now told a story that makes a claim. The story is, like I said, an implied claim. It's an intrinsic claim. You've said, I've got a product that solves this problem that we've been talking about. And now you're going to demonstrate. You're going to prove. This is where proof. The proof is in the pudding, as they say, right? That's the point of demonstration.
Exactly right. And this is the reason why, you know, it's funny because so many people make fun of infomercials and QVC and just the whole thing, or they say that they're cheesy, or many people say they're turned off, and yet they are the single most effective converting mechanisms that there are. All of the different branding that you see, the hundreds of millions of dollars that the large corporations spend, it's in addition to a lot of other direct marketing that they also do. Branding is only part of the equation of telling the full story, and so that's why, you know, that direct response, that direct marketing, it's so powerful because it's so demonstratable. The reason that the Billy Mays of the world and when you see a product like the Magic Bullet and that it's such a huge success is because you're looking at it and literally right in front of your eyes, you're just removing any obstacles to them doing anything. You're like, okay, you don't have any time? Well, how's 30 seconds to make your shake? You want to make pesto for your pasta, make it fresh instead of buying junk from the store? Well, here, it takes 3 minutes. You just plunk it here, there, and there, and turn the thing on, and presto, here it is.
Right, or the guy, the ShamWow guy, right? It's like, you know, he's got a towel that's this big, and then he sits next to a tub. He's like, and you know, like all the water's out of the tub, and it's somehow in the towel. You know, it's
right. It's you know, there's no trick photography, no special lighting. It's just a pure demonstration that's right in front of your eyes. And so, you know, there's always something that's extremely powerful about that. So once you're going through the demonstration process, then ultimately you're getting back to the software here, excuse me. You're ultimately getting back to the next, and Mitch has the software up, so after your demonstration, now you're going to specifically get to the testimonials. And one of the things that's so powerful is as you're demonstrating these aspects, to be able to tie in testimonials directly with the elements of the demonstration. So in fact, as you're sort of demonstrating and you're sort of highlighting a particular feature or element that solves a particular problem, you can tie a testimonial directly to that. So, I mean, in some cases you'll see literally, and in fact, to go back to that same infomercial, this is one of the things that Magic Bullet with that, you may remember the original one, the classic with the British gentleman and the woman, and he had all the people sitting around making faces in the kitchen. They had the lady with the glasses smoking, and you know, they had all these characters. I mean, it was just so silly, but it was just so incredibly effective. And what they did was, to each different recipe that they made, they tied a specific individual. They said, now John, I know that you always love to do baking, it's just you don't have the time. Well, look what you can do here when you need to make your dough. So they were essentially, within their demonstration, weaving the testimonial and case study together. They're saying, John, look what you can do with this. And then, of course, what did they do? They went right back to John after the demonstration, and John said, wow, that's fantastic. Sometimes, you know, they do this with people on the street when they have people jump on a treadmill and say, how does it feel on the treadmill? And they say, wow, I can really feel it in my legs and in my core and everything else. And so you see this process happening all the times in many different ways, and it's so effective because as soon as you can demonstrate it and immediately validate it with someone or something that essentially gives their endorsement right on the spot, or as a part of solving that problem, it's so effective in just continuing to move the process along.
And I can't really add to it. It's just that, the whole point of testimonials is here you've got demonstration, you made claims, and not only did you prove the claim, and now you're going to show customers who took you up on the on your offer. And that's also another important part of testimonials is that you are not the customer, the prospective customer that you're asking to now give you money, or shortly will be asking to give you money. They're not the first ones to jump in the pool, right? There's other people already swimming in there, and they're showing that it's perfectly warm, it's perfectly comfortable. So now other people will feel more comfortable jumping in there. If they're the first, they're worried. Well, what if I get burned? What if I freeze? So that you're taking away some of the fear factor of, you made all this claim, but look, people are nervous of being ripped off and burned and all the time. So part of the testimonials is to show that they will not be the first. In fact, many have come before them and have succeeded.
Right, absolutely. And so what this is all leading to now, once you've built to that point, is you now are talking about the ultimate outcome. And again, not to be confused with the ultimate improvement, which has to do specifically with the improvement that your product or service is going to represent and ultimately lead to. This ultimate outcome represents the promised land that you will be living in when you are using this product or service.
Your customers will be living in.
Correct. Your customers. Good point. Thank you. But again, this.
When you use our software, you're living in that place.
Right. And again, back to the core element tab. This once again is just a breakdown of the difference between on all the elements on your left, which relate to your product or service, and all the elements on the right, which relate to your prospective customers. And so as you can see, the ultimate improvement on the left for the product, your ultimate outcome, these are all the things that were on the right relating to where you are trying to take your customer in this process.
And ultimately, really what you're trying to sell, you're selling the ultimate improvement. At the end of the day, that's what people, the ultimate outcome, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, that's what people want. They don't necessarily even want, you guys don't want our software. You want to be able to make more successful campaigns that make you more sales, more money, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, you have to project that ultimate outcome, in your marketing, and so that a prospective customer understands what's really at the end of the line for them. What's at the end of the tunnel? That proverbial pot of gold. Whatever it means for them.
Absolutely,
has to be what you convey.
Absolutely, Mitch. Truth be told, if we're all being honest, most of you could really care less about our software so long as it does what it's supposed to do. If it gives you the tools and the process to get you the results that you were after, that's all you care about. It's not about necessarily being a raving fan of our software. I mean, whether you like Mitch or I, or whether you like the idea that we create this software, that's great, and we love the support that we get all the time. Don't misunderstand. But at the end of the day, what you care about most is you and your results. And if a product or service is not delivering that promised land for people who are buying it, then you have problems.
But you as a marketer, your job is to convey that result. Don't assume that they're going to know. You want people to experience. That's the stories for. That's what the testimonials are for. And ultimately, you want to. And ultimate outcome could be expressed as part of the story, as part of the testimonials.
That's right.
That's expressing the ultimate outcome. But you want to make sure people get a sense that owning in the case of our software, owning the software is enough to get that experience. Just because we are selling software at the end of the day, but we want to convey that the ownership of the software equates to the ultimate outcome. If we do our job really well, just the idea in the mind of the prospect, having the software alone is enough to get to the result. And that's what you need to do.
Having and using the software. To clarify, having and using the software, but to Mitch's point, obviously purchasing it or buying it is step number one. Having it and owning it is step number one to getting that promised land. And you know what it looks like to describe the ultimate outcome. This is where you've seen in webinars or on stage presentations where they talk about it. And this is what you really want. What you're after is results, right? You want to live the lifestyle, or you want to spend more time with your family. You want to have your work be a much easier process for you so that you can play or you can travel. And this is where, in the case of slides, you may see them putting boats or family pictures or expensive real estate. different people, different industries do it a lot of different ways. But what they're doing before they present the offer is they are showing you what that ultimate outcome is. What does life in your dream look like? And they're trying to tie you into that moment. You're on mute, Mitch. Can't hear you.
Pick up your bottle.
Okay.
Lock on you. Okay, now put it to your mouth and turn sideways.
Yep.
All right. Now act like you're really thirsty and this is the greatest. There you go. The ultimate outcome, folks.
Ooh, that was great. I needed that. I did need that. So, and which brings us ultimately right back to the offer. Now here, unlike when you're providing the solution, now you are actually spelling. Can we go back to the software? There we go. Now you are actually presenting the offer details here. And that's why we wrote offer details. So this is when you're just literally spelling out all the various aspects of your program. Here's what it is. This is the value of this. And again, sometimes you want to peg it to value. Sometimes you don't. And as I said, again, just a reminder, we're going to be going over various case studies and talking through some of these other elements as individual elements and how to use effectively and study those in different trainings. But right now, it's really just to explain it as it pertains to how they're listed and used in the software itself. So this is where you will actually spell out the details of your offer. And then to the right of that is the element of scarcity. You want to make sure that you consider the element of scarcity. And I want to emphasize, I don't mean phony scarcity. I don't mean telling people that there are 3 seats left when you've got 500. People are smart. They can sniff through that. There is always a creative way, and sometimes it's simply a matter of running a limited sale and putting a timer on a page. That has been one of the most effective ways to do it. You see it all the time in product launches when they're running through and they're actually putting timers when they get to the end of the cart. They note that you've only got 3 days left, and that is just real scarcity to an offer that will be expiring. Sometimes when you're at a live event, you've only brought a limited number of physical copies, and so if you want the beautiful physical box to take home with you, then you have to get it here today because there are only 3 left. So many different ways to make scarcity. Obviously, when you are selling or trading your time for money in the form of a service of consulting, you've only got so many hours in your day that are available. So perhaps you only have the ability to work with 3 clients in a given 3-month period or in a 90-day period, depending on what you do. As a doctor, you've only got X number of patients you can see in one day. So when someone calls to make an appointment, I'm sorry, but we're all booked up, and that's the whole reason that they try to get booked out as far in advance as they can. So all of those different elements of scarcity you want to consider as you're putting this together to your offer, which ultimately leads to this next conversion point, which is your primary sale. This is just most simply the point at which customers are willing to make their fuller investment with you, really just more than just the test out support phase. You have now done enough in this process, if you've done it right, that for someone to purchase your product at this point really means that they've got some faith not only in your credibility, not only in your story, not only in the product itself and the ultimate outcome that it can provide for you, but that they're really willing to take that leap and move forward with you in the process. So again,
the goal here is by this point you have to realize, have you built the proper amount of value? Have I built the value in front of the right prospect? Listen, I can build all the value in the world, but if it's the wrong prospect, it's meaningless. I mean, that's where we go all the way back to lead gen. But I've got the right prospect, I've built the right value, and now I'm asking for an appropriate, valued financial commitment from them in exchange for whatever my product or service is. And this is where that decision is made.
Absolutely. And so once you've done that, obviously, they're either going to do one of 2 things at that point. They're going to take the offer, or they're going to, leave or try to leave. At which point, this is where your notes about an alternate offer come into play. So in some cases, you may want to use what's called an exit pop. So if it's online and someone tries to close out a page, they don't take your primary offer. Perhaps you want to offer them a lower offer or a trial, or again, depending on your product or service, any number of different things. Sometimes your alternate offer is simply, if this doesn't work for you, we totally understand. We really appreciate you being here. Let us know if we'll go ahead and extend this to you for an additional 30 days, and if you wish to take advantage of it later, by all means, let us know. I mean, there's so many different things you can do, but the alternate offer is simply what you're going to offer as an alternative to what your primary offer is.
And also known as a downsell, basically.
Or a downsell, or right, exactly right. And so that's the entire primary product sale process. Now the upsell is a little bit different. And again, we'll just show one of the tabs because they're all the same, 1, 2, and 3. Once again, with the upsell, you've got the frame, and albeit it's an abbreviated frame. The one thing,
it's a frame. It's a frame of it doesn't necessarily have to be the same frame. We want to try and relate these things, obviously, but this frame is about the frame that's relevant to the upsell. In other words, you're going to frame why the upsell is important, why taking this making this extra investment is beneficial to your prospect or service, especially considering they just made the previous purchase.
Right. The other thing we should clarify is that when we say upsell, what we're referring to technically is it doesn't necessarily have to be moving somebody into a product of a higher price. It's just purchasing an additional product, whether it be higher or lower priced even than your primary product. It's an add-on of any kind to the primary purchase. Okay, and so with that in mind, you've got the frame as Mitch just described. You still have your headline hook, still have your visual elements. There's still a problem or circumstance this product's going to survive. But you'll notice that one of the things we've left out in this process, even between ultimate improvement and ultimate outcome, is the story and credibility. Because at this point, remember, this is an upsell that is really directly or closely following the primary product sale process. So at this point, you've already done your job of telling people who they are. You don't need to reintroduce yourself and your entire background or even a small part of it in this process when you're simply one click away from where you just were. So really here, you're just getting directly, you're cutting right to the point. You're focusing on your visual elements, the problem circumstance, what is the ultimate improvement that will be solved through your product or service, and also what is the ultimate outcome. You are presenting the offer details for the upsell, and then you get right to the conversion point. So again, not overthinking it in the same way that you went through the much deeper detail of the primary product sale. Someone who presumably has just purchased with you, they just need to see what the benefit of that particular secondary product or service is so that they can weigh that for the value that you're asking for it. Again, is the ultimate improvement clear enough? Is the ultimate outcome for me powerful enough for me to further invest with you? And then, of course, the details of the offer. So that's really the upsell. So at this point, and again, the transaction, so many different nuances, so many different details. So I just want to remind everybody that as we go through these, there is so much material, so much training. I know we've heard from some of you that the training is really, really great and powerful, but it's a lot to take in, it's a lot to capture. And so I just want to remind you that we're going to be doing the hot seats. We're going to be doing the live Q&A sessions, the hot seats, and although we take a little bit of time, as we will now, by the time I finish talking here, you should be hearing it live. For any last call for any questions today, I know we have a smaller group with us today, but if you do have any questions, please chat them in so we can address them here today as it relates to this topic or any others. And but if not, remember that we will be doing those hot seat sessions where we will specifically go through these, and we will work without a net and work on your product or service and build out through the program with you right on that call. So you'll really get to see the software working in action and get to experience the power of it if you haven't already. So a reminder, if you are interested in being one of those hot seats, please make sure you email support@controlwriter.com so that you can say, please, whenever you guys start the hot seats, I'd like to be on the list to be one of them. We want to make sure and get you on there so that we can help you and work with you in that manner. And of course, for those of you that are seeing this as a bonus for a product that you purchased and are getting that, some of you even have some private consulting with us as a special bonus, so we'll do that in addition to any hot seat that you may also want to do. So at this point, Mitch, unless you have anything to add, I think I'm going to make a last call for questions.
No, I think we're all good. I think we covered this. Like we said, the focus is to understand application of these within the context of the software. I would imagine we can spend a whole day on just all these elements and any of these elements and talk about it endlessly. But I think that we covered application within the context of the software clearly, and we probably will do sessions in the future that really dig in much more comprehensively on all these different points.
Absolutely, we have to. So on that note, if anybody ever has suggestions, we have a question. We have a question from from someone asking if we are doing a launch. And the answer is yes, we are always doing launches of some kind of different products. There are different types of launch models that we follow. Sometimes we will do a pure evergreen launch, and sometimes we will do what you may see a lot of the main guru marketers do in what's called the product launch formula style, where you have a sort of a pre-launch session, then you have a pre-launch, which is essentially prepping for everything that's about to come in the launch. Then you go into pre-launch, which is when you're doing your actual training videos, preparing for the final video, which is ultimately your card opening or your sales video. This is, of course, something that Jeff Walker talks about in great detail in his product launch formula. So yes, Alan, we will be launching. We have a lot of different things that are out there. We've got something really, really big on horizon. We're not quite ready to tease you all about it just yet.
Although you're teasing them about it right now.
A little bit. But
we're not going to tease you about this great thing we've got coming up. You are going to be blown away. It's incredible. But we're not going to tell you about it just yet. I don't want to tease you.
Mitch just blew me up. I always come down on Mitch to keep me in check. That was a real jerky thing to do. But
no, I was just teasing.
When I say
obviously, yes, we have something exciting coming up. He is teasing you, and you'll hear all about it very soon.
Yes, I meant tease on the specific details, but suffice it to say that it's something in the software world that I believe is going to be, Mitch and I, and from the feedback we received from the very, very few who have seen it, it's going to be something that is completely revolutionary. It is in the spirit of everything our current products offer, but at an even greater level, which you'll have an opportunity to see, and we're really, really excited about it. And the good news is we thought this might be something that would be a fourth quarter release at best, if not into quarter one of next year, and it's looking like it may come as early as quarter three, and if not sooner. So
yeah, we got a new group of programmers on the software, and they're doing some really incredible things.
Right.
So that's really what that's about.
Yeah, and I just see, Alan, I see you continuing to ask if what you're asking is because you want to be an affiliate, that exists already. So if you go to, for example, for this software for offering conversion control, on the home page there's an affiliate tab where you can sign up as an affiliate. In fact, for all of our products, you can always just email support if you have any questions for our Real Writing brand, for presentation control. Affiliate programs are available on all of those products already. They are available for sale. At some point we may do a more comprehensive relaunch of everything. We're working on a larger mailing coming up within the next couple of weeks for this. But by all means, if you're interested in being an affiliate, earning money as you work through all this, we'd love to have you and are happy to help support you in that effort. So that said, I'm just seeing if there are any other last questions, and I don't see any others, but I thank you, those of you that joined us today are here, those of you that may be watching this in the training members area, thanks for checking this out. Remember, it's always going to be there for you. You can search through it, find what you need. The next training that we're going to cover, Mitch, is going to take us really right to the end, which is going to be, I believe, the retention tab.
We're going to cover retention and the back end. Those two tabs will be covered.
Exactly. Yep.
And we're doing that for the people who are hearing about that live. It's going to be literally tomorrow, I believe, right?
Correct. Yep. We're going to do
tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We're doing the same thing. Obviously, if you're watching the replay, it could have been years ago, for all we know. All right.
That's right. On that note, so we hope to see some of you tomorrow, but we will return to the normal time tomorrow. I believe, Mitch, we're doing 12:30.
No, 11 o'clock. I want to knock it off. Yeah.
You want to do tomorrow at 11?
Yeah. So we can stop the broadcast. No,
it's going to be. I'll talk to you offline. Sorry for the chatter, folks, but we'll do it tomorrow. So look for an email to sign up for that training as well if you want to join us, and we'll see you guys again on the other side. Have a great day.
Bye.